Hello everyone, welcome back to another Minecraft update video for Snapshot 25W36A for the Copper Age drop. That's right, we recently learned the name of the next drop is the Copper Age. And before we get into it, I have something really exciting to share with you, especially if you're a music fan like I am. One of the Minecraft developers tweeted this today. There's going to be a new Minecraft album and it's called Pixel Drift. But it releases tomorrow, so we've got to wait a whole day to listen to this thing. And the album artwork looks really cool. And there is a total of 11 tracks, and currently none of them are named. If that changes, we might get a bit of a hint as to what this soundtrack album is about. I thought it might be related to some marketplace content, so I did search it up on the Bedrock marketplace, but I couldn't find anything that matched. Maybe they just decided to make some new Minecraft music. And currently, no artist is attributed to the creation of this other than Minecraft. So tomorrow will be a big musical surprise, and I don't think it's going to warrant its own video unless we get some additional information as well. So anyway, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If it's really big news, I might make something to cover it. But for now, let's get to the snapshot, which has something really big in it. These are player mannequins that can act like an NPC or an additional player inside of your world. It seems really exciting stuff. This is the screenshot for today's snapshot, and I'm pretty sure those are all mannequins that have been put into the world. We are definitely going to be having some fun with this today, but first we're going to get through everything else that's in this snapshot. Starting with this developer's note, because there's some big under the hood changes to how they draw block entities and particles, so some things in the game in this snapshot might look odd or out of place. As always, if you do discover something, please report it using the bug tracker. And I imagine this might be related to these performance improvements where particles that the player can't see aren't rendered anymore, like ones over your shoulder behind you. There are some other technical changes to particle effects too that this might be related to. Specifically the end light flashes that have recently been introduced. While the Ender Dragon fog effect is active, the flash source in the sky is not visible and the brightness of the light affecting the world is reduced. What it's referring to is how these end light flashes would light up all of the end stone in the end dimension. But it's not just when the Ender Dragon fog is in effect, and when it is, you actually can't see any light flashes at all. So when the Ender Dragon is killed, the fog goes away and we can see end flashes like this one over here. But what you might notice is that we can barely see the illumination effect on the end stone that was lighting it up. So I've waited patiently for another end flash. They do seem a little less frequent now. And at the peak of its brightness, you'll see here that it doesn't really affect the brightness of the end stone anymore. Okay, an exciting new feature. World borders can now be set per dimension. This is something players have wanted for a long time, myself included. So let's go ahead and set the world border to 100. That'll make it very visible here in the end dimension. But the key thing is that we ran this command in the end dimension. And all of the other sub-commands that are related to the world border will now be based on what dimension you're executing this command in. So when we come back to the overworld, we can't see the world border because it's unique in this dimension. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun and execute this world border command inside the nether dimension. And now I've teleported myself there and put myself into spectator, and you can see that the world border here is different from that of the overworld and the end. This is a fantastic addition in this snapshot, as well as those mannequins. We've just got a couple more changes to get through before we check them out. There have been some minor tweaks and changes to the textures of copper torches and copper lanterns. We can see this when we compare the differences between this week's snapshot and last week's. This is true for the copper lanterns and copper torches. This also includes their texture for when they're inside an inventory UI. The copper particle effects have received a couple of tweaks, but inside of here I noticed a new file had been added called Copper Darker. It's not in the changelog, but I believe this is related to armor trims, and it's used for putting copper trim onto copper armor. So let's go ahead and swap that out for the iron chest plate. You'll notice that the copper here isn't as dark as when we use it on copper. This is probably going to be a lot easier to see if I use myself as the example. Let's go ahead and swap between the two, and you can see that the trim is darker when using copper. In accessibility changes, multiple keys that have been bound to the same key will now work together. We're going to go ahead and combine jumping with strafe left, and let's combine sprint with strafe right. Sneak will go with walking forwards, and you'll notice that the previously red warning for this has now been changed to yellow. The tooltip will also tell you what the other key it's combined to is. And if you assign this to multiple keys, it will show you all of them assigned. So we're going to walk forward and it automatically shifts. Now I'm going to strafe to the left and jump at the same time. Strafe to the right and we're sprinting. And I'm fairly sure some people out there are going to find some really clever key combinations to make gameplay a little easier. Not much comes to mind for me right now though, I'm focused on making this video. Also, the spectator select on hotbar feature was previously hard-coded to the middle button. You can now bind this to any key you like. And there's a minor change for UIs that have a text interface. You can now double-click on a word to select all of it. Sometimes it selects 2 words at once. It also selects the space behind it. This one probably needs a little bit of fine-tuning. And an interesting change to shelves, they can now only be connected when they're facing in the same direction. So we've connected all of these ones. I'm going to assume this was because the next block along could be this shelf here, and maybe they were connected, whereas now you can see it ends there. So these 2 shelves aren't connected to this one when they're powered. We recently saw the introduction of a code of conduct that could be presented to the player before they connect to a server, and now any formatting code to change the text in any way will be removed from these files. Alright, with all of that out of the way, we can now finally check out the Mannequins. This is a summon-only entity. That's the only way that you can get it into the world, and it essentially is a player without a player actually connected to it. So it exists in the world like a player does. It has an inventory and all that kind of stuff. It interacts with the world the same way a player would, so we can move them like so. They also have the same amount of health, and I have a high level of strength here, so I can just one-punch them to death. When it comes to mobs, they get treated differently than a player in survival mode. Currently, mobs just simply ignore them. And I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I think it makes sense given that these can't be exploited to spawn mobs. I've done some testing where I go to spectator mode and I fly to a new area and I summon one of these in and no mobs will spawn around them. If I then switch into creative mode, I will get mobs spawning around me in the world. So what you can't do is park one of these at your mob farm and use it to do farming while you're elsewhere in the world. Its name can also be changed, but it's always going to display NPC under it. So this guy's called Steve, but the NPC is going to remain in that space below. Now it does state that it uses below score to do that. This might be a value that's manipulatable, but I couldn't figure it out. And this has a bunch more features, by the way. You can give it a profile, you can give it a texture, you can manipulate the cape and the elytra, as well as what model type it is, if it's got wide or slim arms. And it's also got those hidden layers so you can control elements of the skin that are put onto the mannequin. And so here's the thing I foresee a lot of people doing in their single player world. You want a little bit of company? Maybe you want some of your favorite YouTubers to be on the server with you. Well, it turns out this is going to be very, very easy to do. Here is the command for that, and later in the video I realized I didn't include a custom name, so instead of saying mannequin it could say the player's name as well. Anyway, feel free to pause the video and copy the command and then you can change the names. But you can have even more fun with this. I mean, using a resource pack, you can give it custom textures. This is because your command can reference a texture. So instead of the profile name, this time we're referencing a texture inside of the game, which is the skin of the zombie. And unfortunately, this thing looks a little messed up. It's missing an arm and a leg. The warden doesn't fare any better, and this is because their textures are not the same as player skin textures. The witch is looking really messed up. And what about a mob that's nothing like the player? Well, it's actually a little bit better. That's obviously the texture of a creeper. This one, however, is kind of awesome. It's the drowned, and when we summon it as a mannequin, it kind of takes on a new look. You can have a lot of fun messing around with this, but it's not particularly useful when using these textures. Now, as I mentioned, these are like players, so they have an inventory. You can put armor on them. You can manipulate all of its attributes like its entity scale. So I've made this one glow. I've given it a sword and a shield. And I could put armor on it too. I could put items in its inventory. And that just gave me an idea. Can you use this to pick up items? Because if we threw those at the feet of a player, they would pick them up, but not with the mannequin. And the last thing to show you is that you can give capes custom textures. So this one's been summoned with the end gateway as its texture. And here's a couple more. We got the bedrock texture, the copper block texture, and the diamond block texture. And you can tell it doesn't really scale particularly well to the shape of the cape. But I think the idea here is that you could use a resource pack and then give it a proper cape texture. Alright then, I think we've covered everything about these mannequins for now, but one little detail, the NPC thing is actually range based, so as I get further away, the NPC appears and disappears. All in all, this feels like a really good addition to the game. It feels like lately they keep introducing tons of really smart technical stuff like this. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, thanks as always for the support, and I'll see you soon with another Snapshot video. Bye bye.